The first sign that something was terribly wrong was not the rain pounding against my apartment window. It was the notification from my bank. I opened the app expecting to see the savings I had spent years building, but instead my balance showed $0. Every penny of my $28,000 emergency fund had disappeared. The transfer note claimed it was a family investment authorized through a power of attorney. In that moment, I realized my father had not borrowed from me this time. He had taken everything. For years, I had been the dependable daughter who always rescued my family. My younger sister Madison was the favorite child, always chasing new dreams that everyone else had to finance. My father, Richard, treated my income as if it belonged to him. I paid for Madison's expensive hobbies, covered my father's financial emergencies, and never expected repayment because I had been taught that sacrificing for family was simply my responsibility. Looking back, I realized I had never been loved for who I was. I had only been valued for what I could provide. When I searched through my bank records, I discovered that my father had used a power of attorney I had signed years earlier while recovering from emergency surgery. He had convinced me it was only for medical emergencies, but instead, he kept it hidden until the perfect opportunity arrived. Instead of breaking down, I quietly revoked his access, froze my accounts, changed every password, and reported the unauthorized transfer to the bank. My father immediately called, not to apologize, but to complain that he could no longer access my money. He insisted the family was facing a crisis because Madison had made a terrible investment that needed immediate cash. I already knew the truth. It was not an investment. She had secretly accumulated gambling debts. Soon after, Madison posted emotional videos online, pretending she was the victim while blaming toxic family members for abandoning her. Friends started messaging me, asking why I was hurting my own sister. I ignored every message because I finally understood that people only knew the story my family wanted them to hear. Instead, I drove to visit my Aunt Evelyn, the one relative my father always described as unstable. She welcomed me without surprise and revealed she had been expecting this day for years. From an old safe, she handed me documents my grandfather had left behind. Hidden inside his estate paperwork was a clause stating that if any heir committed proven fraud or theft against another direct descendant, that person would immediately lose ownership of the family property, which would instead transfer to the victim. The property was worth more than $350,000, and my father believed it was guaranteed to become his retirement fortune. He had never bothered reading the legal documents because he assumed nobody would ever challenge him. My aunt explained that my grandfather had always known exactly what kind of man his son would become. He had quietly built a trap into the inheritance, waiting for justice to catch up with him. With the help of a skilled attorney, we uncovered an even darker truth. Madison had forged my father's signature on a private loan to cover her gambling addiction. When the lenders threatened criminal charges, my father emptied my savings to protect her from prison. He knowingly robbed one daughter to shield the other from the consequences of her own crime. My attorney explained that this was no longer just theft. It involved fraud, forgery, and criminal conspiracy. A few days later, my lawyer and 2 police officers accompanied me to my father's luxury apartment. At first, he acted confident, assuming I had come to apologize. The moment he saw the officers, his confidence disappeared. My attorney handed him the lawsuit, explaining that because he had stolen from me, he had automatically forfeited ownership of the valuable family land. His face turned pale as he realized everything he had spent years controlling was about to disappear. Desperate to save himself, my father immediately blamed Madison for forging his signature. The daughter he had protected at my expense suddenly became his scapegoat. Madison stood frozen as the truth unraveled in front of everyone. Their perfect family image collapsed within minutes as they turned against each other while the officers documented every confession. The court proceedings moved quickly because the evidence was overwhelming. My father lost ownership of the land. Restraining orders were issued, and I became the legal owner of the property. I sold it almost immediately to a conservation organization for $350,000. When the money appeared in my account, it represented far more than financial security. It represented freedom. For the first time in my life, I was no longer funding someone else's dreams while sacrificing my own. I finally understood that real family never treats love like a transaction.